Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I have Joseph Branch here, and we're going to be talking about internships and just his junior developer position and what he's doing right now. We'll go into that backstory. And I specifically want to focus on unpaid internships. So before I introduce Joseph, or before I give Joseph a second here, I just want to kind of address that because I always see these Twitter trends. And what happens is a lot of times we'll see these trends take off and they have like a partial truth to them and they have some merit, but they just take life on their own. And people just start following them. And everyone right now seems to be bashing unpaid internships. Like I saw this one tweet. This was actually just yesterday where I don't know who she was. She posted this tweet about unpaid internship and she just got attacked for it. Like thousands of comments just bashing her for even posting it. And it was kind of interesting to me because I'm a big fan of internships in general. And I'm totally okay with unpaid internships. So for me, I've taken a few of them. I can't remember exactly how many in my past, and not all of them have been for developer positions. But I think they're a great way to get your foot in the door, get your experience without having somebody have to take that risk on you and potentially lose some money on you if they're hiring you. So a lot of companies want that experience. But if you're willing to jump in as an unpaid intern, it gives you a shot to prove yourself and potentially get hired at that job. So I tweeted about that just a couple hours ago here. Joseph, I saw Caleb Curry, Joe Santos from Coding Phase responded to, and that's somebody I actually want to eventually get on the stream, so he might jump on here. But I love his take on it because a lot of these people have had their start there. So yeah, so Joseph, we'll get into the unpaid stuff later, but tell us about your internships. You said you've done about 4, and now you're officially a junior developer somewhere.
Right. So what's up, everyone? I'm Joseph Branch, and yeah, I've done 4 unpaid, or not 4 unpaid internships, but I've done 4 paid internships. And right now, I work as a junior developer at a place called Kuzi, and we just build, content. Well, we build utility software. And my experience for my 4 internships was great. And even going on, with unpaid internships, I would have taken any of my internships had they been unpaid, just because one of the most important things that one of my bosses told me when I was doing an internship, he was like, if you get any experience, that's better than nothing. So whenever I first look at a resume, I see, has this person already had any internships prior? And if they have, then I'm looking at them as a top candidate already because they already have real world experience. They already know how to work with people in the atmosphere, in the industry, and things of that nature. So it was like, just a blessing that I was able to be paid. But at the same time, I'm like you. I'm like, if I could have got the internship and it wasn't paid, then I still would have done it. And I just wanted to know, like, how can I get better? So I think that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, you're first in line automatically. And right away, I'm seeing somebody in the comment section talking about bills. So for my unpaid internship, so I was in high school. I didn't have like a crazy amount of bills. I was still living with my parents, but I was in high school and I had this program where I was doing a running start program where you can start college while you're in high school at a community college.
Nice.
And I've never had parents give me my parents give me any money. I never had that luxury. So it was always on my own. I've had a job since I was like 6 years old doing pulling weeds, landscaping, anything like that. Like I was always my parents buy me my clothes, the clothes that I need to survive on, and food and a shelter. And that was it. So in high school, I was going to school. I got an internship and I did that from 2:30 to 6, but to still get paid, I had to go and get a job in my off days. So that internship was, I think, 2 or 3 days a week, but I still had to work. And then when I was later on, it was a couple of years or a couple of months after that internship was over, I was still doing other stuff and interning in certain positions and going to school. And I had to take a night job. So when you talk about the money, I absolutely get that it's going to be hard, but you're just going to have to make it work. Like I would consider it like tuition. It's like free college tuition in a sense. You're going to get better experience than you would have in any schooling environment. But yeah, you can make it work. And I think that's very important to push through that. I know a lot of people, that's not very popular, but that's to answer that question about bills. There's always still going to be time in that day. It's going to be different for everyone, but yeah. Let's go into the internships, into the actual internships. You said they were all Were they all developer ones? You said there was 4 of them.
Right. So I had 4 internships. The first internship that I actually took on was a STEM. I was a teaching assistant for STEM field. So I was just teaching, I believe, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh graders, the aspects of STEM, minorities at that. And even though, because everyone's like, oh, what if I could be the next big baseball player, the next big basketball player, football star, whatever that is. And I'm like, well, what if that's not the case? And when you start to break down the numbers, I'm showing them, this is really the percentage of people that make it that far. And then there's an even lower percentage that make it that far and stay in that field. So I'm like, but you can use STEM to, do so many things, and you can still become that next big billionaire or trillionaire, whatever your goal is, if it's monetary or if you just want to make an impact, depending on what that is. So I got to teach, those the next generation pretty much what about STEM. So hopefully, leave an impact and encourage them. Then from there, I got that experience and I was able to go to my next internship, which was one of my favorite bosses ever. He was the coolest guy. Taught me more than just things about the job. He taught me like things about life and like how to approach certain situations. So I was doing a paid internship with him as well. And that one, I was a technical support assistant or technical support intern. And during that internship, I was really just managing network drives, moving files back and forth. And I was talking to Dennis about it. You know, the whole job, he was like, if there's anything you can do to make this job easier for both of us or better, then do it. And so it started off, manually moving these files back and forth. So I created a little Python script to, create these emails. And then like after I created the emails, it would go through, parse the Word doc or the PDF, grab out all the contents we needed because we had a templated format. And then after it grabbed out the contents, it would populate all these emails in a folder. And if we wanted to send them that day, we could. And if we didn't, then we would just send them the next day. And so, but pretty much it took a job that would take us, 30 minutes to an hour because we have to do this for 30 plus emails a day. And it made that happen in 5 minutes. So I immediately saved that company, hours. And if I stayed there for, I believe, a year and a half. So, if we were doing that every day, I don't know the math on it, but for a year and a half, I saved them like weeks on something. And we were able to take weeks worth of time and put it towards something else for production. And that was just amazing to do.
So that's the definition of a programmer right there. I would hire you in a second just for that, like a problem solver. You found an issue, and it seems like you were coding before that, then, right? Like, how old were you? How much knowledge of code did you have at this point? And is that what you were already trying to do?
So honestly, that's the craziest part. I didn't start coding until I got to college. So I started coding when I was 18, and I'm 23 now. So I've been coding for about 5 years, but like I have that mentality where I'm like, if I can go get it, like I'm gonna go get it. Like, I'm not gonna shove out the next guy or step on someone's toes trying to get what I want, because there's no need for that. You can show how good you are at something by putting in time and hours and just being ambitious and, finding the opportunity, because there's always a problem that needs to be fixed. And in my case, it was just like, okay, I realized I could save the company X amount of, hours, days, weeks, if we just built this small program that took me like a day or two. And of course, I make amendments to it as I was going along, but it took me a day or two to save them weeks. So of course, that's not an immediate benefit.
Where you were getting a CS degree then, right? Like you were learning that in college?
Correct.
Okay,
well,
cool.
Yes and no. I was learning the basics of programming, of course, but like they weren't teaching us that. So my college experience was kind of more of I don't know, my GPA wasn't the greatest, but like I'm more of a worker kind of attitude. Like if I see the immediate impact or the overtime impact of something, then I'm like, okay, let me, put my mentality there and focus on those things, because honestly, CS, or programming rather, is a field where you can just learn it on your own. Like kind of
Yeah,
like how your
absolutely.
story is. So I wasn't too concerned with, learning exactly everything they were teaching in school, but rather, what am I not knowing? What do I need to know for the real world kind of thing? So
Gotcha. So real quick, I saw somebody asked who you were, and I realized I didn't link you up. So I just linked up your channel in the description. So I fixed that. Go check out Joseph. You're on YouTube. You
Right.
teach and talk about coding too. So I just want to make sure you're linked up there.
I appreciate it.
So the first job, it was for a STEM program, right? And then you had the technical support where you wrote that Python script. I want to get into the next two, but I want to ask you, how did you find these internships? Was it through your college, or were you just actively looking on your own? I see somebody's asking about that.
Right. So my first internship, it was affiliated with college. So I was a part of a STEM program that would help you as you migrated into college as a freshman. And so we had these conferences every year, and this woman was just talking about, um, Dr. Fletcher was her name, and she was like, you know, you should, if you want an opportunity to work with these guys in STEM and an internship, then this would be a good idea. And I think it was just a summer program, but I called it an internship on my resume
Oh,
because
okay.
it was like 3 weeks, but I was like, I mean, this sounds like an internship to me. I'm getting paid to do something related to the field. And I mean, I'm going to take that, use it as an internship on my resume. And if you talk about it the right way in an interview, obviously I'm not trying to deceive anybody, but like I'm using it to my advantage per se. And so it just kind of elevated, and nobody really goes and asks, so is this a summer program or is this an internship? And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well,
It's
so
all in resumes. It's all about the wording. I know somebody that did they were working at like Burger King or something like that, and they were just in the kitchen, and they called it like they were like the head, I guess they're head of the kitchen. They called it executive product manager or something. I don't know. It was ridiculous. It was
yeah,
somebody I used to work with, and they didn't lie, but it was just funny because
yeah,
when you read it, you kind of knew you can put two and two together. And he would always get laughs out of the interviews. Like they liked the creativity of that, even though they knew he was just flipping burgers.
right.
But just that made him stand out.
And that's 100% the thing. Like the way you word anything on a resume is, I mean, that's what people look at. They look at that title, and half the time, I'm not even sure they read descriptions of the job. So at that point, it's up to you. Definitely don't lie on a resume. In my opinion, I wouldn't say. I don't know. It depends, I guess. But you know, definitely take that creativity into your own hands and be like, yeah, this is what I did, and highlight the parts of your job that made you stand out and made you different from the next person that they're going to interview. So my next internship was actually my first as a developer, and I was working at Nucor Steel, and that one was I loved it. But the first time I interviewed for it, I actually bombed the interview. Like it was awful. It was awful.
Did you say that was for a developer position, right?
It was for
Okay.
developer.
What was the role again?
I was a software engineer.
It was
So
like a front
software
end,
engineer.
back end, just
Oh, full stack, full
full
stack.
stack. Okay, gotcha. Just want to
Sorry
clarify
about
that.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so the first internship, and this is probably paid too, right? You said
This
they were
one
all
was
paid.
great. Yeah,
Okay,
this one was great. As
awesome.
especially as an intern, money I'd never seen before.
Oh
And
wow.
so honestly, it just made the job even harder, to be honest. Like I was so concerned about like, am I actually worth what they're paying me kind of thing, that half the time I was focusing on that rather than I was the job. And I was like, am I doing enough? Like, I'm like, I'm literally asking these guys, I'm like, you know how much you're paying me, right? Like, am I worth what you're
That's a
paying?
good problem to have.
Yeah.
I've always struggled with that because my personal rule, something my dad taught me, he said always work double the pay that they're giving you. So if you're getting paid $50 an hour, work like you're getting paid $100 an hour. Always overproduce. And I've always mentally, like, if I had an easy day, I'm like, okay, I don't feel like I deserve what I just got paid today. Like I didn't do much.
Exactly. And see, I'm on the same mentality because I mean, it was the mix between being an intern. I know I'm supposed to be learning, but literally when I was looking at the pay, because I mean, I'm like 19 or 20 at this point. I'm looking at the pay and I'm like, you know, am I seriously like getting paid, X amount of dollars to write code and learn? Well, really just learn what's going on in the atmosphere. Like, of course they wanted me to write code, but the tickets that I was getting, you know, I was new to web development at the time. That was my first time actually just really doing web development, and especially full stack development. Like I had done a minimal amount. So I was like, I feel like I'm not contributing. Like that whole idea where you're talking about working 2 times what you were paid. I was trying to stay after 5 and learn more and integrate. Like we were working with Ember.js, something I'd never heard of before. And then we were doing .NET Core, which of course is very widely known, but at the time, still my first time doing web development. So I'm just like, I really don't know what's going on here. Trying to figure it out. Like so they started putting me on PHP and JavaScript projects, and I was like, okay, I can do this. But then I'm like, but you kind of paid me to do this other thing. So like, am I really doing what you want me to do? So it was just really difficult to, I guess, I don't know, settle that feeling. But the experience that I gained by the end of it, I mean, that's literally the spark that caused me to be the web developer I am now, because I felt like I was so, to myself anyway, I felt undervalued to that company. I was like, I never want to do that for another company again. So I decided, okay, I'm going to like the next year, that Christmas break, after I failed that interview, this was before the internship. After I failed my first interview with them, Christmas break, I went and learned everything that I could about web development. And that was like 2 or 3 weeks. Like I learned databases, front end, back end, all of that in the span of a month. And then I practiced
Wow.
that up until the internship. And so once I got there, I was like, okay, this makes a lot
Hold
more
on. So you failed the interview first, didn't get the
sense.
internship, and then went back and did it. What was the array of what was the requirements? You said you were doing .NET, you were doing PHP, you were working with databases. Like what was their requirements, if you can remember? Maybe not
Uh,
like every single item, but like what was the array of languages and stuff and sort?
So they wanted you, of course, .NET, so C sharp. They wanted you to have PHP, JavaScript. If you knew a front end framework like Angular, React, or Vue, something like that, which that's what Ember.js is. And then they wanted you to be a junior in college at the time, which I was. And I think those were pretty much it. But the interview question was the piece that I felt like the behavioral
Oh,
skills.
gotcha.
We were all good, but there were 3 guys in there. I never had that many people in the interview before. And they were all asking me these questions, and I'm like answering them. We're all laughing, getting along, having a great time. Then they asked me the technical interview question. I literally remember I stood up at the whiteboard and I pulled off my suit jacket, and I was like, started to sweat, and I was like, I'm not sure how to answer. And I know how to answer it now. It was a question about, if I'm given a unique set of numbers, or not a unique set of numbers, find the first duplicate pretty much. And so,
Mhm.
uh, simple question, super simple question, but like I had never heard of technical interviews at that time. So when I walked in there, I was starstruck. Like I was just like, what do you mean? Write code like on that whiteboard right there? And they were
So you
like,
weren't ready.
no, wasn't prepared by any
Yeah.
means, by any means.
I remember I one of the earlier interviews that I did. This was after like I sold that website,
Mhm.
and I went into this interview, and the guy that was interviewing me, one of them was like, it was like good cop, bad cop, because one of them was like clearly trying to press me and get
Yeah,
under my skin, and the other guy was ridiculously shy. And I think the way that I won them over as far as like personality, because I can read people pretty well.
right,
He goes on the whiteboard, and like the whiteboards have that area underneath where you put the markers, like it clips on underneath it,
Mhm.
and that thing falls and it makes this ridiculous noise, and he gets all red. And I think like the moment I won him over was when I started laughing and I started making jokes about that, and like
right.
you can totally feel the room, like the energy in the room just changed right away. But I just like made it a point to just play it off and not make him feel uncomfortable. That was a funny non-technical way of actually winning the room, I guess.
And that's the
And
key, in my
yeah.
opinion. Like the soft skills as a developer are what they pay attention to more than the actual, can you solve this problem? Because
Or how you solve it. Yeah.
right. Because there's so many different websites nowadays that either give you the answer, or after you do so many problems, they become recycled. So now for the company that I'm working at, I'm actually one of the people that is part of that outreach team to, find the next talent, I guess, or something
Oh,
along
wow.
those lines. So, I mean, I know for me, I'm not really concerned with like what your GPA is or things like that, because I know mine wasn't great. So I'm not
Yeah. You
gonna put
understand that.
right. I'm not gonna put something on somebody else that I wasn't, I guess focused on myself. But like, how well can you convey the message? Like, because developers and communication, those two aren't hand in hand sometimes. So, you know, um, like, how well can you tell me how you solve the problem rather than like how you actually solved it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I talked about that in one of my recent videos about the interviews.
Right.
Like it's usually the thought process, and there's ways of pulling information out of their question to actually give yourself time to think, because a lot of times they ask the question and you're like, okay, the clock is ticking now. You can buy time with that and almost throw it back to them. It's like politicians use the strategy of answer the question by asking another question. So what I would do is, if they asked a question that I didn't understand or I didn't fully understand, I would usually go through my thought process. I would say stuff like, I think this is what you're referring to. And if that is, then I think this is what it is. Or I remember doing research or building something out like this where I had to use it. So trying to do that. And what happens is once they see that I'm thinking about it, they'll usually clarify what they were saying. Like, let's say the topic was something regarding middleware. They'll try to give me an example. And then what I'm doing is I'm actually going through all the things that I've done, even though I can't give you the best technical explanation. I made it an open dialogue rather than me trying to give you like this dictionary type of answer, which is really hard to nail every single answer if you're going through 50 questions. So you ask me a question, I'm going to throw it back to you and I'm going to make it a conversation, and they won't even realize, but I just sucked them into giving me the answer in a sense. But that's the good way to do it, because in a real job, you're not giving definitions.
Right.
You're breaking through, you're solving the problem, you're doing some research. So once they're seeing you ask those questions, it's kind of a funny little trick that I just instinctively knew how to do. Like, I didn't learn that anywhere. It was,
because literally that's look, you're making it harder for me to get future jobs now, giving away those great tips right there. Literally, I do that exact same technique in the interview. Like, if you can buy yourself 10 to 15 seconds to just think of some alternate answer, if you don't know the actual answer, then you just like stun the interviewer, or make them think at the same time. And you're like, and as an interviewer, they're so used to just getting you to think. If you make them think, they're like, oh, okay, this guy's now registered in my memory. Like, that was a good question that he asked, or like, that's pretty insightful of him, something like that. So
one example was it was when we were talking one of the interviews. I don't know why it was a front end position. I don't even like, I'm more of a back end developer anyways, but they asked me about the order of basically the order of operations for CSS IDs, classes, and inline styling. And I remember I kind of blinked out. I was like, okay, I know that ID takes precedence over a class, right? Like, if let's say you have you style an element with the color red and using a class, and then you style it blue with an ID, the element's going to be blue because the ID takes precedence over it. But the question was, where does inline styling come in? Does that override the ID or the CSS? And I remember I was like, okay, I should know this, and I think that it was the inline styling. But I just asked him, why would you even use inline styling? Like, give me an example on why you guys are even using it. And I totally, like, it's not relevant to the question, but I just threw them the curveball and made them explain to me why they were asking it, and totally, like, gave myself time to think. And they really liked that, though. It was cool to see that.
I'm gonna say, that's something that's just like, I guess, uncommon in interviews. I don't know why it's not taught more to do or something, but like, as an interviewer, if like you make me think, then I'm gonna be like, I mean, why do we do that? Like,
exactly.
So that's pretty dope. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I was like, why do you guys use that in your company? Because that's not that common. Like, I knew why I would use it, but So that first job, if you don't mind me asking, if you're not comfortable with it, don't tell me. But what was the pay for that first one?
Oh man,
I know if you're uncomfortable, don't say it.
It's all good. That one was about I'll give a range. I would say between 20 and 25 for
the first developer
as an
internship. Okay, 2025, 19 years old. You're still in college. That's some big money,
dude. I was sitting there. I was like, wait. 25 times 40 hours a week. Oh my gosh, I make that a week. But no, something like that. And it was in that range. I wouldn't say it was 25, but it was definitely in that range. But insane just as a developer. And I was just kind of like, how? That's why I was questioning. Like, I went from my first internship making around 12 to now I'm at this place making somewhere between double that. And I'm like, how did I end up here? Like, I don't know what you want me to do, but like, well, I know what you want me to do, but like, am I actually doing what you asked me to do? Yeah. So
what was the actual task? Like, I want to open that up. Like, you come in on, day one or the first week, you're getting training probably on the company system. Are they are they showing you code? Are they giving you assignments? Are they assigning you under a senior developer saying, hey, you're this guy's right hand man, or what are you doing here?
So I literally was a part of the team from the first day that I came in. I mean, I was working at a steel plant. If you know Nucor, they're steel industry. They're in the steel industry. So I went through OSHA training first off. That's the first thing that I had to knock out.
OSHA training, like the the enforcers for. Okay, gotcha.
Because I mean, like honestly, like nobody got injured while we were there, but you can die on the job because I mean we're in the steel mill. Like as developers, I actually was tasked with walking with some of the other developers there. We walked out to the steel mill, the cold mill, the hot mill, and you know we're walking up. I'm 100 feet off the ground at minimum, walking next to like literal steel burning like this close to my face, and I got on all my PPE and everything like that. But you know, one wrong move, and they tell you that one wrong move, and you could fall over the edge or burn yourself, something like that. It was.
What was the point of going out there? Why are you guys out in the field?
Because we wanted to ask the technicians like, hey, what do you need? What can we do to make your job better?
I see.
Or is your printer working, or is your computer malfunction? Do you need a better one? And we had internal software that they used to do their job pretty much. And so that was why we would go out there. We would go out there once every week, and we were on rotational shifts. But I mean, that let me know from the start I was a part of the team. Like when you go through OSHA training, you're kind of like, wait, why am I in here? And it was the 10-hour training. So that was literally a week of OSHA training. Like my internship, one of the first weeks was just making sure I knew what to do in case of an emergency, or what to do when this team or this alarm went off, or things like that. And what not to do is the most important piece. But that, and then we were doing sprint. So if you're familiar with sprint, then there's a 2-week process, or agile rather. And we were doing sprints, and that was 2 weeks. You pick up tasks over the course of those 2 weeks that you think you can complete, and you work down those tasks. You submit them. Create PRs, submit them for code reviews. Someone else on the team in a higher position, like more of a senior or whatever, they'll review your code, send it back down if it needs corrections, and mine always needed corrections. And then you just keep resubmitting that process, and at the end of the 2 weeks, you go through, do a retrospective where you evaluate like how you think you did for those 2 weeks. And every time I did retro, I was like, I don't think I did well. They were like, oh, you're an intern, you're doing great. And I'm like, are you sure? And but I mean, 100% a part of the team. I had a senior developer. I was in the office with, it was me and 2 other people. Senior developer to my back right, or back left. He had been there for 20 plus years. And then I had another, I guess, upper mid-level developer to my right. And he had been there for like 5 to 10 years, something like that. Great people to work with. I mean, when I tell you, I had so many questions, and they would literally sit down with me, answer every single question I had, and make sure that I actually understood it. I mean, we were drawing diagrams on the board, everything. It was the whole works. So yeah.
Sounds like a great organization, actually. They're throwing you in, they're trusting you with a lot, and you're just an intern. I mean, I've heard of interns, like all they do is like, I have my brother-in-law actually is in college, and I believe he's getting a computer science degree, but he's going for like aerospace too. And he took a couple of jobs actually, and he's like, all we do is just review code all day, and they're just sent like, they're pretty much just looking for bugs in code. And I know internships are going to change, but he's like, we're not actually doing anything. So he got really bored with that. Some of the stuff he said it wasn't even coding related. Like they pretty much just had him doing some labor work. And I think they were paying him like $15 an hour. So that was actually paid.
Yeah.
So the tasks you're saying, and obviously, like I said, if you can't go into anything,
I can. I got a couple I can think about. Yeah.
Okay. So like you were saying, you're meeting out with the technicians, and you're just pulling off tasks. Like, are you picking and choosing what you want, or are you being assigned certain things? And are you building add-ons to a piece of software? I'm just curious about that, because I know a lot of people have questions about the specifics there.
So while I was there, they were in a very transitional state. They were moving from their legacy software over to a newer software that was more updated, because the legacy software was built with PHP and JavaScript. The new software, they were using Ember.js and .NET Core. And so at first, my internship started off, they would give me a task. They were trying to see where I was. And they were trying to figure out also, should we let him sink or swim, or should we be like guiding him along the way? And it was a little bit of both, because I told him I wanted to, sink or swim. Like, I'm one of those people, like, if you're going to, like, again, they were paying me somewhere between $20 and $25. So if you're going to pay me that much, I want to do everything that I can. So put me out there, throw me in the water, and if I drown, I drown, and throw me a life preserver before I sink too far. But um, but I literally was in there, and my first task, or one of my most memorable tasks, was I was trying to figure out why the sidebar on the application was collapsing, and I spent it was rated, the tickets were rated a 3. And so if you know how tickets are rated in the industry, it's a Fibonacci sequence, the way that they do it. And that was a 3. And so it's super easy ticket. And they hadn't solved it. And so they were like, okay, maybe the intern can solve it. And I actually did end up solving it, but it was definitely with the help of them. We realized the problem wasn't us, but we were using, my first thing was like, okay, how do I figure it out? So I'm reading the code, and I'm like, all this stuff seems right. I'm asking all these questions about cookies, had no knowledge on that. Asking all these questions about like just CSS, and I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. So then I started opening up the task in different browsers, and I noticed in Firefox and like Edge, there wasn't that issue. I'm like, so how's the issue existing only in Google Chrome? Turns out Google had a bug in Chrome that year where when you sometimes Chrome opened up as a 0 width. And so our code was checking if the width was less than 640 pixels, then
wow, I see.
close the sidebar. So every time it opened up on those rare occasions, then it would be less than 0 or less than 640. So it would close the sidebar. So we just added in like, another conditional that said, and width is equal to 0. And that solved the problem. So
wow. So the issue was actually Google, though.
Yeah, it was actually Google.
That's funny.
I was so mad. I was like, wait, I was never gonna figure that out. Like, I'm looking through all the code and everything. I'm like, everything here looks perfect. Like, I can read code. This is perfect. And so then one of the other developers, he's like, let me think of something. So he goes, looks up Google's existing issues, comes across, oh, it turns out
No
Google
way.
just made a mistake. And I was like, no way. And then another task, this one, I was so scared to work on. They do their timesheets internally, and they put me on that task. They would say, this is some of our nastiest code, but we know if you can navigate this, you can navigate, the rest of our code base. And it wasn't even a bug. I was actually validating the timesheets because there was some issue where you could enter in like 5,000 work hours that week. Somehow it passed through, and you could enter that in. And I was like, okay, so I was going through, that was PHP. It was pretty nice. It definitely was a messy code base at the time, but I know for a fact that they fixed it. Those guys out there, geniuses, man. Like I hadn't worked with, like, everywhere I go, I'm just blessed. Like everyone knows so much about what they do. But for that particular ticket on the timesheets, I was just like, if I mess this up, I'm either going to be deleting people's work hours for the week, or I'm going to be, because I was able to access prod data. So
Oh, wow.
I was either going to be deleting people's work hours for the week, or somebody was actually going to be able to put in more than 5,000 hours per week. So something crazy like that. And I think the final one that I can think of, that when I actually went out into the mill, there was these documents. Like, whenever we got there, we have to read like 100 documents before we can touch anything related to the company. So they needed a way to filter the documents, and they allowed me to build that. So I ended up building a filter, or extending onto the actual functionality of the existing filter. And yeah, I was able to add that filter in that they needed out there in the mill to see documents that the technicians needed. So it was pretty dope.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. It's neat to actually see what you're doing. Like, I want to dig into this a little bit more, because this is a side that a lot of people, I guess, don't really get to see. So hearing those specific tasks, that's awesome. How about any issues? You said you got close to almost deleting certain things. Is there ever anything where you deleted? Okay, you're laughing, so there's probably something there. Let's hear it.
I might have almost broke the production branch a couple
Oh man.
times because I was not familiar with Git by any means. Like all the projects I'd done had been localhost, everything in PHP and JavaScript. So you don't really, there were small projects, so um you don't have to oh man, it's actually the other task that I referenced. You don't have to, push a small project to GitHub or anything like that. But the task that I was just talking about, the filter. So, we're doing demos or whatever, and I'm calling this guy, and I'm like, I'm on the branch, so obviously it works for me. Well, when we were pushing stuff to production, we have our server that we actually have to push code. If we manipulate anything in terms of the database, the code has to be pushed on that server, and it has to be pushed on these the Git branches or whatever you want to call them on our Azure DevOps servers. So I was pushing the code so he could see the filter, but the filter was broken and this is in production. I pushed it. It's in production. The filter's broken. I'm like, no, I'm testing the filter now. I'm on the phone. Like, I'm testing it right now. I know for a fact it works. And then my senior developer looks back at me. He's like, yeah, we're testing it. It does work. Then he thinks real quick and he's like, wait, did you push the server code for the database? And I was like,
Oh
and
man.
I just put my head down. I was like, no, I didn't. So yeah, I mean, I got this little ticket that I'm so certain I sat. And the crazy thing is, it passed the code review and everything. So obviously the code was right, but like the steps to getting it for everyone else to see was absolutely wrong. So this guy's out there frustrated because he's like, no, it's not working. And I'm like, yes, it is. It's definitely working.
That's funny.
As the intern, I'm like trying to stand my ground.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, I'm like, it's definitely working. Like I'm looking at it work, and then yeah, no, it wasn't working. Like
I'm surprised they let you make changes. So that was the production branch. Like I'm surprised you even have access to that. Like most situations, you're pushing it to your own. They take that. They usually have somebody else doing all of that for you. That's a surprise to hear.
It was. I mean, they were really just like they tried to make you feel as if you're on the team, and I really did. Like I kept telling them because every week we would have these meetings at the end of the week, to review how I felt my internship was going. And I mean, I would always constantly tell them like, I feel like I'm learning a lot, but I don't know how much am I actually contributing to you guys. And they was like, oh, I mean, the whole goal of it is for you to learn. Like, don't worry about what you're contributing. Just make sure you're learning a lot and like you're able to do it and whatever, because they had a habit of bringing you back the next year. But when I was supposed to go back, COVID happened and all of that. So
it sounds like it almost seems like they were getting subsidized. Like if they were so concerned with your learning, that's impressive. Like you don't hear that. Companies are usually like they're having to meet their deadlines. They need production. Right. So you got put into a situation where they really nurtured you. Like that seems like the best case scenario. The fact that they're even wanting you to learn, saying focus on learning. Right. I've rarely, I mean, I've heard that before, but it's rare. Like that's amazing.
It really is. And like, it was shocking me. Cause like, again, that's why I had the issue with the pay. Cause, I'm thinking these guys want me to go in and like hit this deadline every week and, so and so forth. But they were, really just, wanting me to learn that summer. And that's why they bring you back, I would say, because they want you to learn one summer, or if you already have skills, apply those, get more skills, come back, and then, apply what you've learned over the course of the next year and practice and more so and develop. And then after you do that, they want you to, come work for them eventually.
So they're looking for employees.
Right.
So somebody's asking if that was remote. So you were there, you were in
I was on site there. At that one, we were out because it was at the steel mill, everything needed to be on site pretty much. And I mean, if you needed to, for personal reasons, you could work from home. Like I know those guys, they had it in their like job descriptions or whatever that they would work from home once a week because they had a dentist appointment or a child that was sick or the veterinarian, things like that, which I think is now becoming more common for developer positions to work from home at least once a week. But I'm not sure, I guess.
Yeah. So that was your third one.
Right.
Yeah. So that was your third one. And that was pre-COVID, like a couple months before that.
Right.
So we still have to get to your current job. Then we kind of touched on that, but you went to a fourth one that was also as
Correct.
a developer. I'm guessing. I'm assuming you didn't go back, or like you didn't go back to a different career
Yeah.
path.
So for that one, the reason I didn't go back because they reached out to me, and at that time, actually, I had started realizing like through college, like we had this little thing called Handshake where you could go find internships and things like that. I had 4 opportunities prior to COVID, and I was gonna go back either way because those guys were just super cool, and I was learning so much, and I wanted to prove that, hey, I took that year of what you taught me, or the 3 months of what you taught me, and after that, I was still learning more. So let me come back and repay the favor. You guys hired me on a whim. You didn't know if I could or couldn't do the job. And now I do know a lot more. So let me show you that I know that. I wanted to prove myself pretty much. But
Gotcha.
yeah, my fourth one, that one ended up getting canceled because of COVID and the 3 other ones. But then there was this other one that I meant. It was at a place called Southwest Power Pool. They deal with utilities, and they actually, I hope I'm not wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was like 15 states. They keep on the power for 15 states. And so it was really neat working there because, like, at this point, I know what I'm doing, and I'm like, all right, now I'm in an important position. Like, if I mess something up, I'll probably shut off the power in Arkansas. So, and that one, I had like the same thing. Like, I don't know, I keep getting into these roles where they just give me so much freedom to um, like, I don't know, learn because I was working on their server. Like I did my work on their server because it was now, don't get me wrong, as an intern, I got a lot of freedom. But as a person working there was so many like minute details that you had to make sure you pay attention to because we worked like that company worked close with I guess it wasn't the FBI, but with the government because like they were dealing with utilities. I don't know how much on that one I can actually say.
Yeah. Don't
But,
go into it if you're unsure.
like, yeah, yeah, you had to pass a lot of background checks and a lot of it was. I was like, "Are you sure I'm an intern? Is that it?" Like,
Yeah, I know what that's like. We've done work with Amazon, Google, like at my other company, and yeah, we went into one of the Amazon what do you call those data centers. They had more security than the White House. It was ridiculous. Like
bro,
they know who you are. They know every step. Like
every
we're walking through a room, so we had to go check out. So we were building some software that connected to what Amazon was doing. So
Mhm.
we had to go into one of their data centers, and every single room we entered, you had to get a temporary passcode, which they got all your details, everything. You enter a room, but if you're walking with like 3 people, you open the door, you have to shut it behind you, and every single
Yeah,
person has to open that door and shut it behind them. And if one of you guys crosses and then happens to punch in your code in the next door, all the doors lock up and you're stuck in that room until they figure out who you are, what's going on, why you're there. Like it was ridiculous. Like, yeah, they definitely,
this was the
yeah.
exact same situation. Like when I tell you the security, like every week we had to watch security videos. I believe I'm able to tell this. Like so, if we had a cybersecurity team, and they would send out fake phishing emails to us, and you had 3 strikes, and if you clicked on any of those links, like depending on the severity of what you did, like one of the ranks was clicking a link, that was 1 point. Um, 2 points, automatic 2 points, or maybe it was an automatic 3. If you
So
went
they're sending you like a phishing scam, you're saying,
right,
right? And you don't know that it's coming there
right.
throughout the week. Okay,
It's
gotcha.
random. It's absolutely random at any
Wow.
moment, and you can get more than one in a week. And this is the company internally sending it. So, and they ranked it right. It was crazy. They ranked it from 1, 2, and 3, I believe. And depending on what you did, if you clicked on the link the first time, they give you a warning. And they were like, "Oh, you're," because I clicked on one. It's,
Free music download or something. You can't
dude, it
fall for
was
that one anymore. That's too common.
Man, it wasn't even that. It was like it was a pretty good one. It came from like the CEO. So I'm like, oh man, I'm an intern. I should probably respond to this. Yeah, it wasn't the CEO. And I clicked on it, and then right when I clicked on, I was like, wait, I just realized the email's misspelled. And I was like, okay.
Oh man.
Yeah, so that was fun. And if you click on the link, you get a warning, and they give you like 30 hours of video training that you have to go rewatch. Yeah, it was
Wow.
insane.
That's a week's worth of work. So I'm
Yeah,
assuming they're doing this just to verify or just to clarify this. They're doing that because if you don't know what a phishing scam is, that's where they send you something, try to get you to open up a link, right? And they're either getting your information,
right.
trying to get you to download something so they can infect your computer and download like a virus or something, or just get in, right? Okay, so that's why it's so secure, because you're working on their software and they don't want you getting something.
And that's where the automatic threes come in, because some of these, like the way a one would work, you would click the link, it would open up the browser, it would say, oops, you accidentally clicked the phishing scam, so and so, so forth, take you back to your email, and then it automatically notifies the company that you click the link and you get a point, and they send you an email automatically that says, hey, you click this link, now you have to do this training, and we had a deadline when the training needed to be completed. So now you're doing your work on top of like 30 more hours of video to meet all of the deadlines that you had. And a rank 3 phishing scam would be if you click the link and actually entered in information, and that gets you automatically fired, I believe. So if you get 3 points in that year, then you were placed. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're terminated. 2 points was suspension, 3 points was termination. Yeah.
So that means you can sabotage the company and give away private information if you go all the way to a level 3. Like you did something that was serious and can ruin them.
Yes. Yeah. And that would just literally be like, if you were think about like, the free music downloads that like enter your email, or free gift cards, enter your email, enter your password. And like, it was company emails and company passwords that people are entering here. And, the amount of stuff that I saw, like it was so much stuff. Like I wasn't allowed to participate in any utility related stock markets that summer, like anything related, because I knew, like,
it's like insider trading,
right? I'm just saying it was insider trading at that point. So I was like, okay, because my brother he trades, and he was like, hey, can you help me build this up?
Oh man,
anything, like don't even ask me that. I don't want to go to jail. Like don't ask me. Yeah. So it was pretty dope.
So how are you liking your job? So that was the last internship. So you had the 2 developer internships. Those are the last 2. How's the job now? Like, what are you working on?
Right now, I work on utility billing software, and so I work at a local
that's cool.
Company, and I say local, but they do a lot of that. We have a lot of customers all across the country, and it's I guess you think of utility billing software, you're probably like, oh, that's kind of boring, but like honestly, dude.
I love that stuff. It's not boring to me. Like I always think about how that stuff's designed. I love it.
It's insane. So they have a legacy software as well that they're transitioning from, because they were using like WPF or something like that. It was a Windows application. Now we're turning into a web development company, at least in those regards. Like we're still going to support the application, but at the same time, we're working on this web-based software.
So it's like a SaaS, right? Like it's a utility building software, and you guys are going into just building out software for other things. So turning into a web development company.
We're taking the application and turning it into a web-based product so that more people can use it, because it's going to have a whole bunch more features. And we're using Blazor, which is why a lot of the things that I build in my free time is in Blazor, because I want to learn more about it. But Blazor, if you don't know what that is, it's Microsoft's new take, or it's Microsoft's take on UI. And it uses C#. So if you get tired of JavaScript ever, then, go use Blazor, and it's really fun. And actually, I read recently that in .NET 6, they're going to be using Blazor as their UI for like Electron. They're going to be doing Blazor.
I've heard a lot of good things about Blazor, like a lot of good things.
It is amazing. It is.
Do you have any tutorials on it? I know you've done a few things in Blazor.
That's what I'm trying to work on, creating some of those, but I don't know. I got to bounce like some ideas off that, but like I'll try to get something up in the works in the next couple of weeks.
It seems like it's going to be hot. Like
it is so good, dude.
Yeah, like I've seen a couple of courses on it. One person I want to give a shout out to is actually Claudio Bernascoli, I believe is his last name.
I have to check him out.
He just put out, I think he's from France or something like that, but he just started putting out his Blazor course. So he's putting out good work there. But yeah, like I'm seeing it as something like, I don't like to jump on trends or anything like that, but from what I heard from coding or Coder Foundry, he talks a lot about it, and he was just raving. I'm like, okay, he's making some valid points, especially with .NET and
It's
all that. So
It's so man, especially like yeah, what you're saying right there, especially with .NET, you're able to do C# on the front and the back end. And I know it sounds crazy, but like when it comes to data transfer objects and things of that nature, they just interact perfectly because it's the same language. At this point, I'm really just copying code from my back end and my front end and making sure that the transfer objects are the same. And then I know, I mean, it already has JSON parsing and stuff like that. So it does all that for you. And then .NET is just amazing on its own. I get so tired of writing like JavaScript, and I try to write all my stuff in like TypeScript now, but like if I don't have to do that, then why would I? And it really, to me, I think of it like Angular. Angular has view models and things like that,
mhm.
and Blazor has that same aspect. And um, it just seems like a more well-structured Angular and a break from JavaScript, honestly, especially
Yeah,
because I do a lot of Node and things like that. Like, it's just a nice breather.
cool. Yeah. Well, we went into the internships. Brad Traversy actually put out a video on 5 traits that make a good developer, and you displayed a lot of those just in
Really?
what you were sharing. So I want to get into those. Actually, I wouldn't mind. I
Okay.
wasn't really planning on doing this,
Yeah,
but
go for it, man.
let me open that up. He had it on his Twitter account. I'm gonna find it real quick. Let's see, Brad. So he put out the video and then he actually posted them. Oh, here we go. So uh, patience was the first one, and it was kind of funny because he goes into how impatient he really is, and I'm the same way. Like I'm very like when I want something, I dive into it, and I just go into it. But patience, I think he talks about the ability to stay consistent with something, because with coding, you're definitely not going to be like, you don't really have the luxury of being on your own time in many cases. Like a lot of the
Right.
times the code works you, like it owns you in a sense. Like it's just
Yeah.
going to be done when it's done. Like I said, I'll try to set a deadline of a week and it's going to take me 3 weeks. And sometimes it's like, okay, it's not because I'm being slow, but because that's just what it takes. So patience was the first one. Then we have uh, motivation. I'm assuming you're a pretty patient guy too. Like you'd probably have that characteristic.
It got developed over the course of years, many years. Coding will teach you to be patient. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a teaching assistant, and it wasn't till then where that patience set in. When you watch someone else code and you know the answer, but you can't give them the answer because then how do they learn? So you just sit there and you wait. And I'm like, nope, that's not it. Like I can't
Yeah.
tell you what it is, but that's not.
So there's motivation. What was your biggest motivation? In
Well, my biggest motivation is everything I do. I mean, honestly, it's my mom. Like, if I wouldn't have got any of my internships without her. I remember I was up my first internship. I was playing Xbox till like 2 in the morning, and she was like, "Shouldn't you be applying for this internship?" And I was like, I already missed the deadline. I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna do it." And she woke up. She's like, God told her to, tell me to like do the internship. And so I was like to at least apply. So I was like, okay, I'll apply, whatever. Just leave me alone. Let me play Xbox. And she was willing to, write that whole like, because I couldn't figure out the about me, because it's so hard for me to talk about me without bragging or something like that. I don't want
Yeah,
to
I
be
get
like,
it.
hubris or whatever. But um she was like, okay, I'll write it for you. I'll do all that for you. All you have to do is submit it. And then I read it and I was like, oh, this is kind of not good, mom. So, but she knew what she was doing, because then at 2:30 in the morning at this point, I'm writing my own thing. I submit it. I get a call literally the next day, and they're like, hey, you want to do this thing, da da da, this second interview. I do that. But I mean, single mom, and she just worked so hard. So for me, I was like, anything that I can do to take the weight off of her and put it on myself, you know, I'm gonna do that. And then it just so happened with coding at the same time, um, it was a skill I didn't have. So I'm like, I always tell myself I'm a businessman that just so happened to learn how to code. And so if
I get you there.
right, you see, so I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't good at it, but I could have gone to college and done mathematics because I'm really good at math. But like, it would have been easy. So I wanted to challenge myself. I'm like, if I'm gonna spend 4 years in college, like I'm gonna do something that makes me think every single day. And coding was that thing.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
Yeah, that's where my
Yeah.
motivation comes from. Just not wanting to be bad.
Yeah. Well, that's a good one. That's one I always I don't struggle with motivation at all. That's actually one I
Right.
struggle to answer when people talk about how to get it. Like I've never had the lack of it. I think when your reason why is big enough, you'll find the motivation. Like I've never had to motivate myself. To me, the only time I've ever had to actually motivate myself was when I actually achieved my task. Like I remember there
Right.
was a time where I finally, I got to a certain point, in a year. I think it was the first time I hit, like, I think I pushed over 100K. It was like collectively in a year. And this was between like my job and side stuff. And it was
Mhm.
like, I finally got it and I didn't achieve everything, but it was weird because it was the first time where I didn't have to go out and work. Like in theory, I could have just taken a week off and just relaxed. Like I
Right.
wasn't used to that. I was always used to
The
busting
grind.
my ass every week. And like for 2 years, I think I can actually probably find my calendar and find 2 or 3 years where I didn't have a single weekend. Like that's how hard I used to work. And so it was really hard to adjust from that. And then your motivation changes. And then it's like, okay, well, what more do I want to accomplish? And I never motivate myself for my own dreams. It's usually for someone else. Like my dream is still to retire my mom, and they're in a good position where
Yeah.
they, my mom and dad don't necessarily need me to retire them. Like they're doing good with their business, but I would love to make sure that they never have a single need in their life. Like that's kind of like my push now. And then certain things that I want to make sure to get my wife. So
Right.
like
And
have for her.
those are the hardest motivations to kill, honestly, because you can't kill them
No,
externally. Like no
hell
one
no.
outside of you can be like, oh, I'm gonna like stop him from achieving what he wants to achieve. No, because it's the internal drive at that point. It's like, and
Yep.
so I understand you completely. Because
Yeah.
when I felt that first interview, I was like, am I like, my mom worked so hard for me to get to college, and like she told me, like, you're gonna have to get a scholarship or you're just not gonna be able to go to college. I can't afford to do that and hold the household bills, because it's me, my mom, my brother. And so she was like, when she told me that, I'm grinding for the ACT score, I'm grinding to get in. And once I get there, I'm not doing so well in CS. So I'm like, what am I doing wrong? So then at least when I got my first internship, I was like, okay, I must be doing something right. And then they kept coming in and rolling in. But when I failed that one, I was like, my progress, like all of this hard work is starting to not turn out because I'm going to graduate, get this job in development, web development, most likely. I can't do it now. I got to learn it. So no weekends free. I took every single weekend and I built some type of project, literally learned every language that I could learn. I mean, if you ask me PHP, it'll take me a couple hours to get refreshed on it, but like PHP, Angular, Vue, just a tiny bit of React, Flutter, um, JavaScript, Node.js, C Sharp, like anything. Like I'm just
Yeah.
like I'm gonna like okay,
You'll
give me
figure it out.
have to.
Yep. So number 3 on that list after patience, motivation is problem solving. You've executed that one. You wrote that script for that company. I love that one. Like out of everything you said,
Yeah,
that stands out to me over the paid internships and the actual developer jobs. Like that to me is a problem solver. Like that's what I did at my company. I just saw something and fixed it. Like as a programmer, that's what you are. So
yeah,
good at problem solving, thinking for yourself. That's going to be in bugs. That's going to be in finding solutions. You're working out in the field. Like I remember going back into the lab. So I worked at a forensics laboratory. So I would actually go in with a chemist and I would take the fuel sample. So we're testing like diesel,
yeah,
gasoline, natural gas, and I would watch that process, and obviously with the chemist supervision, would go through what they were doing and would try to see what part of their process I can make easier. Where are they inputting data that maybe they shouldn't be? And I found out
yeah,
like they're writing everything down on paper and then entering it in the system. I'm like, okay, why don't we get a computer in the lab and have you enter data in directly so we don't have to hire another person just to do data entry at 15
right.
bucks an hour. Like this is I'm thinking for the company here, and that's an extra position we don't need. Like we need to
Mhm.
morph that. And then also working with accounting. Like I wanted to make sure I was in every position. So yeah,
That's
that
that's so smart, man. Like I respect that so much. Like I watch all your videos, but like that right there in its own, whenever you were telling me about that, I was like, dang, I wish I could do something like that. So for you to say that, I appreciate that, man.
yeah,
And
yeah, no problem.
that project, actually, the one you're talking about, is my favorite because not only was it just something that wasn't a part of my job, but it ended up helping me like get intern of the year at my college because that was the same company that you know that supported me through that whole endeavor. And then like after that, I was national nominated to be National Intern of the Year.
Oh,
Except
wow.
those guys, like I knew I didn't win. I looked at some of their I looked at some of the past winners. I mean, one girl was like she worked for like the Senate and the legislator in Texas, and then went to Korea and was practicing teaching people Korean in her off
Oh,
time.
jeez.
Like, yeah, Chinese. Like I was like, oh yeah, I'm not doing all that. Like I just helped this company do this one thing. I didn't do that much. But yeah, no, it was nice. That yeah, they still use that thing I built to this day.
That
So,
script. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. So after problem solving, then we have number 4, which is communication. That's a clear one. We talked about that in the interview process, working with the team, willingness to learn. I think that kind of comes with motivation. So this is Brad
Right.
Traversy's, how do you call it? 5 high level skills and traits for programmers. So I think he hit it on the mark. Like those are all things that you need, and that you can have like subcategories of those, but those
Right.
are all very good there.
I completely agree. Yeah, that's a phenomenal list because those are things, especially as someone that's now transitioning and well, still developing, but adding on a role of outreach that I'm going to be looking for when I see people. Like, how motivated are you? Like, are you taking initiative to go learn things you don't know? And like, can you communicate to me how well you know what you do know? And yeah, so
Yeah.
100%.
So real quick before we continue, I see we're over an hour. Are you good on time? Can you? I want to
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure. Okay, I
yeah.
want to make sure you're not holding you here.
No,
So
you good.
I want to talk about. I want to go back to your current job real quick and your position and you hiring people, and then maybe
Okay.
do an open Q&A for a little bit. Just want to get to some of these. So you're currently. Are you actually interviewing people at your job? So you're in charge of outreach. You're finding developers. You're doing
So
like full stack developers or front end, back end, both of those.
mine is going to be more for the intern level because we definitely like our seniors are going to be the ones that like I might be like I would say the front line
Okay.
for getting them in there because I'll be like, oh, okay, if this is a good person, take their resume or something like that. And they're really training me in that role because our director of technology was like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this. You know, you have some decent soft skills or whatever. So,
I can see that. Yeah, for sure.
thank you. But he was like, come over and so I'm going like, if you've ever been to a career fair, the people at the tables that are like telling you about the company, we
I
have
see.
those guys, and then there'll be us as engineer slash developer, where we're going to be like asking more technical things and telling you more technical aspects, and then gauging where the level of the applicant is, and going from there. So he said he wants to eventually hand that off to me. Like, he told me, I'm going to work with you on like the first 2 people, and then after that it's all you. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So I've had a little experience interviewing people just because, I mean, honestly, dude, when I think about it in context of talking about it, one of my internships, one of my bosses, I won't say which one because I'm not sure how it's supposed to work or whatever, but he let me like interview a couple of the candidates for my position when I was about to leave. Like, he was like, you know what you do best. And he's like, so who's going to be the best fit to replace you. So like I
That's a
actually
smart boss. That's
he was, dude, I'm telling you, I worked with
that's wisdom. That's Solomon like wisdom
brilliant
right there.
people ever. And it's
Yeah.
like, I'm looking at it now. Like, I still text that boss to this day, and I'm like, hey, let's go grab food, catch up on life. Because he taught me way more. Like, if you go for an internship, 100% learn how to do the job. But if they were willing to teach you anything else outside of that, like life skills, like, I mean, this man was teaching me, like, I need to save this much to put down on a house when I get this age. And if I start saving this much now, then I'll have this much later. And he's like, why buy a car now when you get your first job, when you could take your old car, put back $200 a year or $200 a month or week or whatever from a check, get 5,000, trade in that car, put that together. Now you paying for a car with no note. And so teaching me everything. Just, it wasn't
Wow.
just how to do my job. So I mean, I owe him like everything. Like, I tell him all the time, like, thank you.
Yeah, he set you up more than just in the job,
Yeah.
or in the career field.
Yeah,
How are you guys dealing with this whole situation? Like, are you guys mostly doing remote or in person? Like with all this right now? for
So
the
it
hiring?
depends on I mean, so my boss actually went and got he bought a building solely for the developers. So to keep like the social distancing and everything, he spread out the people in our main office because to get in our office, you actually need a key fob and you have to be like buzzed in. Oh no, wait, my bad. You got to get a key fob for one of the doors. And then the other door, you have to do a fingerprint scanner. And then you also have to check your temperature. And if the temperature is too high, the fingerprint scanner fails, of course. So, you can't get in the office if they think you have COVID.
Gotcha.
And so he spaced out the main office, and then he got the developers our own office and our own desk and all the equipment we need to do our job. And I mean, they treat us so well.
So
Like,
you guys are coping.
oh man, it's amazing. I mean, and if we want, like, we have some guys on the team that are elderly, or some other guys on the team that have medical conditions, so they can work from home if they want to, and indefinitely until COVID clears up, or they can come in the office if they want to. So it's really at our discretion, and it's laid back in the sense of they're not just micromanaging you, but
Hmm.
like at the same time, we all get our jobs done. So there's no need to do that either.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you guys got a good situation then.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I'll jump into some of the questions here.
Okay.
Let's see. So yeah, if you guys want to ask some questions, internships, try to keep it related to the topic. I try not deviating because these videos get posted after. And if somebody's watching a video about internships and junior developer roles, then all of a sudden we're going too specific into like a technical topic. So let's see. Thank you, Snoop Lobster. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. So this is going to be my attempt at reading Russian. So a lot of people ask me if I'm Russian. Let's see. So I can speak it like not too good. I have an accent, but I'm trying to read this. So this says, well, I'm gonna try to read that quietly so I don't mispronounce it.
Man, you're doing much better than me because I don't know I don't know.
I actually cannot read that one. There's a few characters in there. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna skip that one. I think this person commented again. So there we go. That's me trying to read Russian. So mom says, yeah, if you see any, let me know. Just go ahead and point them out.
I do see one that says, I think it's Joel Angel. He said, "Can I get a remote internships?" And
Okay, where was that again? What was the question?
Joel Angel. He says, "Can I get remote internships?"
Oh, okay, right here. Yep.
Yep, right there. I mean, absolutely, because I know for the one that I was gonna try to do this summer, at the steel company that I worked for, they were talking about possibly doing it remote. And actually, I don't know why I thought about that one first. The one I did this summer was remote because
Oh,
we were gonna go to a place that was the company is located 2 hours away from my house. They were gonna get us apartments and everything to live, so that we could work on site. But then that ended up falling through because of COVID, and they didn't want us to, live together and possibly contract it, trying to go in and out the office. And they were trying to protect all the employees, so they implemented like 4-phase program to make sure before they can go back in the office. But yeah, that one was 100% remote. It didn't affect any of my pay. It didn't affect any of my job. I mean, they sent me my laptop that I would need it, the docking station that I would need to connect to monitors. They even offered to send monitors if you didn't have any.
oh
Like,
wow.
they took care of everything.
So yeah, it probably is harder for sure. I mean, it's possible. I've seen it too, but I'm sure it's harder here. So let me get that question back up. So this one specifically, just because there's certain characters I can't read, I want to pull this up. Here, you want to read this for me? So you want to just read it to the camera? It's
I don't even know how to what the word is. The sharish vo frontendi. So there's asking something about front end, but I don't know.
It's something about front end develop. Yeah, so this is right here, or that last letter with like the circle and the line through it. That's an F in Russian, so it's kind of funny looking character. Yeah, so if you can clarify that question, whoever asked that, maybe that was a bad attempt of trying to read there. Okay, let's see. It looks like we got some more questions here. Just came in.
Okay. Yeah. I bet my alarm went off. I forgot I said that one.
Okay, I'm following an internship at a company with 35 employees, and I'm getting a task that are pretty difficult. I would say not in my range of knowledge, what do you recommend doing? Well, you've experienced this. You had a good position, so they were understanding.
Oof. I guess that's the first question I would ask, like, how understanding are the people you work with? Like, do they, if you were to go up to them and say, hey, this task is a little outside of my range, is there another task that I can do, or something where I can still, benefit the company and do my job, but I would need to learn a lot more. And right now, as a junior developer, that's hitting me hard because I'm so ambitious on my own nature that I was pulling in a bunch of tasks for sprints and things like that. And one of my senior developers was talking to me. He was like, hey, you can just, like, if you can't, because I was pulling in a task and I think I pulled it into 2 more sprints than it should have been. And it was supposed to be done in 1. And I think it was taking me 3. And I was like, yeah, I honestly don't know how to do this. I've been trying, but I'm just stuck. And like, when I saw that I wasn't benefiting the team anymore, then I was like, it's better for me to tell him that I'm not able to do this task so they can still, reassign me to a different task. Because I mean, in my opinion, you're doing an internship. They should understand, he has more to learn. And even as a junior dev starting out, they understand he has more to learn. So I would
just to add to that point, I think you said it right. Like, you're going to have to be honest, and at the same time, you are an intern, so they should understand that. But if you at least approach it with taking a stab at the project, at least, like, trying to do your research, like, I would, like, if I hired an intern, I would expect him to do that. Like, you don't want somebody that says, well, that's out of my scope, I don't understand that. Like, that's not a viable answer. But if it is something that is a little bit out of your range, you can say, okay, this is what I've done, or this is where I'm struggling with it, and then ask for that help. But at the end of the day, even if you aren't honest with it, they're going to find out at some point if you can't do the task. So you're going to have to communicate that. And at that point, that's just the best you can do.
Yeah.
So I like this question, just because the interview questions, I guess they could vary a little bit based on an internship or an actual position here. But let's see. The question is, could you tell me what your interview questions for a software developer? Can you give us a couple examples? Like, were they going? You said you did some whiteboard interviews, you did some technical ones. I'm assuming they had soft skills in there too, or questions more based on personality and so on.
So for my first internship as a software engineer intern, that question they asked was just finding the duplicates, find the first duplicate in a range of numbers. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to just write out a bunch of if statements, and then, that should do it, right? And increase the count, and then add it to a list, increase the count. And, whichever one gets to 2 first, that's the answer.
Let me just flag it.
Right. And the guy was like, well, what if I give you a list of 1,000 numbers? And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm going to write 1,000 if statements. Obviously, I knew that was absolutely wrong at that point. And so that I failed the interview, but that's a really easy question looking back at it, hindsight's 2020. But then my second question for that same company, when they came back to me, they were like, and the reason I got the job was because one of my friends actually took a different internship. And so I was their second pick, but I didn't care. I was like, I got the job. But they asked me, find the minimum and maximum value in an array. And I was like, oh, I know how to do that in my sleep. So, and they were like, how would you go about doing it? So they wanted to know that I could problem solve, because it was that how part that really got me the job. Because, you can make a structure and just find the min and max at the same time and return the structure, or you could create 2 functions and, find the min with one and find the max with the other and return them that way. It just depends on the needs of the company. And that's the answer that I gave them. And so they were like, yeah, that's what we were looking for. And then they're like, we're going to deliberate for a day or 2 and we'll call you back. They called me back in 10 minutes, offered me the job. I was like, because I answered the phone. I was like, huh? And it was like, yeah, we're just going to give you the job. I was like, okay, cool.
They were bluffing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll call you back. They already knew what they wanted.
I'm so sorry. I could have.
Oh, no worries. That's a live streaming for you right there.
Right. And then my other internship was the one I did this past summer. So the one I did this past summer, that was more of a soft skills one. They didn't ask me any technical questions. They did gauge how much I knew, but they honestly, he had saw my professors helped me with that one. So I do a lot involving like computer science at my school, or either I'm just leading a club because I started a club for technical interviews, and or if I'm just like participating in meetings, leading meetings, or presenting at Code Friday. So it turns out at the career fair, that guy went and sat down with my professors and talked to them about like the students that were doing well in computer science. And he had seen my face on a poster because I was a teaching assistant, and they hang all of our teaching assistants on posters. So, you can just come up to us and ask us anytime. Probably
Yeah.
don't ask while I'm in the middle of eating lunch, but it's okay. But no, honestly, he saw that, he talked to them, and at the career fair, he actually like beckoned me over and was like, "Hey, come here. Like, can we talk to you? How would you feel about coming to work for us?" So after having, I guess, the experience that I had, it became them wanting me to come work for them because when I graduated, um, I actually had 6 job offers for web development or software development, whatever you want to call it. And but I like where I'm at. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not after the money. I'm after the knowledge, and the guys that I work with are like top notch, top notch. So, um, for that one, definitely soft skills wins over any interview. Like, even though I bombed the first one at the company I worked at, because I had good soft skills and we were laughing throughout the interview. Like, even if we like the if statements thing, when I was like, I guess I'll just write 1,000 if statements and laugh. Like, they laughed, and like, that's what made them call me back, in my opinion. And yeah.
Were you ever coding in front of them? Did you ever have to do one of those, or was it like whiteboard and then just asking you how would you solve this and try to get you to explain it?
So the first one was the whiteboard and the whiteboard when we wrote out the code, like I wrote out the code on the whiteboard. The second one was a Google Doc, and they made me like write the code in a Google Doc. And so I did that one in C++. And that was pretty easy because, I mean, it was just the min and max values of an array. They were just, because I asked him, why did you ask me that question? He was like, we were just making sure you had at least some basic knowledge of how to code. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's fair. But yeah, those were, I guess I've had an array of and I guess I shouldn't say array, but I mean an array of different types of interviews, to be honest. I've had the phone call interview, the Zoom interview, the in person, the Google Doc, and like, I mean, at
Yeah.
this point, they all are the same.
So I gotta give this comment a shout out real quick. This is
Okay.
I love that somebody responded to him. So my brother right here always trolling me. How to make $1 million with an internship. and then somebody else responds with, actually, how to make $2 million. Why not 3? I don't get why you wouldn't go for 3.
Yeah, if you know how to do that, please let me know, and I'll go tell my past self like what I did wrong. That would be very nice right now.
So this is a good question. Can you explain the difference between a junior developer and a senior developer?
Well, for me, the question
It's gonna change, yeah.
Yeah, the questions are 100% like what they ask you in the interview. Like, I know I was talking to my director of technology the other day, and these are really old questions, but he was asking me what a GAC was, a GAC, and I was like, I have no idea what that is. And it was more related to WPF or something like that. But he was like, it's a globally accessed cache, and there was nothing I would never ask a junior developer. But like, as a junior developer, the questions I'm getting are like, what is the difference in a strongly typed language versus a weakly typed language? And when would you use one or the other, and why? So they're a lot more focused, whereas senior developer questions are a lot more open-ended, and they're going to leave you room to like screw yourself, I guess, in a sense. Because if you know what you know as a senior developer and you tell them that, then that's good. But if you start going off on tangents about what you know it, but you kind of go off on this tangent and start talking about stuff that's unrelated, then they'll know because you just expose yourself. So they just leave you room to expose yourself at a certain point as a senior developer, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I guess just to explain the difference in position, maybe that might be part of the question.
Okay.
A senior developer is somebody that's you're somebody that's going to lead a certain project. Like you're going to be leading a task and probably in charge of creating something and seeing it basically from start to finish, and maybe even leading a junior developer. Now, for the interview process, a junior developer is somebody that can usually get plugged into a system and just get certain tasks done, but under some form of leadership. Now, the questions for a junior developer are usually going to be focused on general understanding of your ability to program or to code in that specific language or framework, while the senior developer, like you talked about, going on those tangents or that thought process, like they're expecting you to be able to figure virtually everything out. Like you're the leader, juniors are going to look up to you. You're going to be you're the last line of defense usually when shit hits the fan, so to speak. So when something happens, like it's on you. So they expect you to not just know the answers. Like you shouldn't be doing a Q&A when you're interviewing for a senior developer position. They're going a lot deeper than that. Now, junior, like I did my interview questions, like those are focused on junior positions. Like in this case, it was for Django. Well, I guess it was for a full stack developer, but focused on Django. It was like, do you know what's going on? Do you know how to accomplish basic tasks? And can we plug you into a system? So I think that's kind of sums it up there.
There is a question that I see, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Which one?
I believe it's Erie Zerchi, maybe. Yeah, that one. Any advice on getting internships early in your college career? Just finishing up my freshman year of CS with an okay GPA. So for me and you, the road would be different, I guess. And this is up to you to decide. But I took an internship that was unrelated to CS because I couldn't get any CS internships because as a freshman, honestly, I really didn't know anything about web development. So if you know that you can go in there and crush it as far as a web developer, then I mean, absolutely go for it. But like, if you're still on the edge and you still know you're learning, then, you can still apply for it because they might want that kind of person. It just depends on where you're applying to it, of course. But at the same time, I would just go get internship experience in general. Rather, like my first two internships are not developer internships by any means, but they allow me to get a feel for what people are looking for in the real world. So I was able to, do a 40-hour week job. I was able to, understand how people interact in that business and industry environment. Like you get to see like actual, I guess I'm calling them adults, even though I work with them, but you get to see actual adults argue or yell at each other or disagree or come to a compromise or meet in the middle or whatever you want to call it. And, you get to see how a company flows. So that way you have some more knowledge for when you actually do go to apply for jobs. You're not just in a job where you're like, oh, this company doesn't have any culture, or this company has really smart employees that don't interact, or this company has employees that interact well, but they're disorganized. Like you get to see all of that from an internship perspective. So in my opinion, anyone that you can get as unpaid or paid, like get it, put it on the resume, make it sound really nice, be able to tell them what you did and how you contributed, because that's what people want to hear. Like, how did you contribute to that company once you got that internship? And, they're paying you or they're not paying you, either way, what did you do to help them improve? So.
Yeah. I like that you touched on internships that aren't even related to tech. Like that's something that's really interesting about today's culture. Like I remember when I was doing the hiring, I guess I'm 27 years old, but I want to say my generation. I guess it is a whole different generation, but I don't know. Like it seemed like everybody had a job back then. Like all of my friends in my neighborhood had jobs and paper routes very early on. And when I started interviewing people, there seems to be a disconnect, and like kids aren't getting jobs until they're like 20s now. And it's kind of weird to me, like
Right.
at least side jobs or something. So if you're even getting a job that's unrelated to tech, I see that you're at least battle tested for some kind of corporate environment. You have some form of structure and you understand what it's like to work somewhere. Like one of my biggest issues with tech Twitter right now, like I'm not a big fan of what goes on there. There's a lot of these trendy things that just fly every way. But what's happening is you have a lot of people that don't have that much experience in the either in the hiring process, or they're just jumping in and what's going on and what's popular, but the advice itself doesn't come from what's coming from the employers. Like, they're not coming from the market. It's just people swinging things around. Oh, don't get unpaid internships. You should only get them paid. Well, the job market's still going to have the unpaid internships. Like, you still need to go through that process. So you have a lot of opinionated people. And if I know you've worked somewhere, I at least know you're probably not too much a part of just social trends, that you've actually experienced it. So yeah, I don't know if I stated that correctly, or if I made sense there, but I like to know that you've at least went through some filtration process, and you're away from that herd mentality of this is how we think things should be. So therefore we're just going to make it this way, even though that's not what the market says.
No, I agree with that. That's 100%. Like, I don't know. I mean, personally, I don't know why you wouldn't take an unpaid internship, because they're just as competitive. Like, I know plenty of people that would be dying to have any internship in general. So, I mean, I was blessed that, in my case, I was able to do 4 different internships that were paid. But like, literally, had they been unpaid, I would have felt so much less stressed, because I would at least known that, okay, I'm here to learn and contribute, but like at a different scale and a different rate. Whereas if you're paying me, like, that pressure hits. Like, they want their outcome. They want returns. Like, they want to know that we didn't just waste this money. Because like, when they're paying you, I know one of the biggest discussions that they were having at one of the internships I was at was, should we continue to do this program? Because they had one intern or something that wasn't doing their job, and so they wouldn't let them work remote anymore, and we all had to come in the office and stuff like that. So it just depends. Like, especially when there's money on the line, businesses take that very seriously.
Yeah, I guess that's the best way to summarize it. There's a disconnect between the job and the market itself. Like, at the end of the day, the market makes the decision. That's it. Like, we as consumers are money. That's the company's goal. Like, you can dislike that all you want. That's just how life works.
Facts.
And that's their objective. So we can't take our desires and wishes and enforce it on the market. Like, if the market doesn't respond to it, it's just not going to happen. So let's see. I want to get this one. How can one maximize their chances of being recruited? Is it commendable by recruiters to reach out to them directly? Maybe LinkedIn. So I guess I'll summarize that with how can you maximize your chances of getting an internship, or maybe getting seen? And I think we kind of covered a few of these.
Right. I think your best shot is going to be a resume. And I shouldn't say best shot. I guess the best shot would be if the company you're looking for actually has an open portal to apply at that time. That's going to be your best shot of being seen, because they're actually looking for it. And if you're trying to go somewhere that's not really looking for the type of internship or the type of work you're doing, then you're gonna have a minimal shot. I think that makes the most sense in terms of that question. But also, when you do have that shot, make sure your resume is in order. Make sure there's no misspellings and grammar, because like, some people like me, I'm gonna read everything on your resume, because I'm new to this, first off. So I want to make sure I'm not skipping something. And I know all the time that I put into my resume myself that I'm gonna read. I would hope someone reads all of mine. I know they don't, but like, I just hope. So I'm gonna do that, at least starting out, and eventually, get to the point where I can skim over and find out what's important and what's not important. But make sure the resume is in check. If you're talking about developers specifically, the order that you have on your resume, in my opinion, matters. If you are a graduate, then put your graduation at the top in education. And then after that, it's projects. Well, it's internships, work experience, and then projects. So, if you have those internships already, put that on there. If you don't, I would replace that section with like projects. And because I want to see, what have you worked on in your free time? If you don't have an internship, whether it be summer, fall, or anything, then you should be 100% working on projects in your
building something.
Yeah, something, anything. If it's tic-tac-toe or something, let me know that you don't want me to just tell you what to do. Like, show me you have initiative and that you can like come up with stuff on your own, and then I'll be more likely to be like, okay, well, this guy's trying. Like, nobody's giving him a shot. I'm gonna be the guy that gives him a shot. But
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Now, here's an example of a project. Like, there's a lot of people struggle with big projects because they're newer. So they're building to-do apps, small e-commerce websites. Maybe they follow something that I've done. And I was thinking about this the other day and how you can maximize something like a to-do app. And I noticed one of the best things you can do in any form of interview is have your own project. Well, how do you make your own project if you're not that good of a programmer? Let's say you're just starting out. How do you build something that you would actually use that isn't that big? And this is one of those things that I think this isn't where, like we talked about, not lying, but changing up how you word something. What if you built a to-do app, but instead of like a basic to-do app, you made it like here's an idea. I always write down phone numbers, or not phone numbers, but names in my notes app in my phone, right? So I'll meet somebody and I always just write Jake from this city, met him at this restaurant, just because I want to remember like a waiter. Maybe next time I see them a year from now, like I can just search up real quick in my phone and I can just type in like that restaurant name and remember that person's name. And then that way I can interact with them. So I have like a way of saving names in my phone so I can remember them. What if you followed a to-do app tutorial and you made a notes app that was meant for saving contacts' name, and it just had basic CRUD functionality, search functionality. And now when you go to this interview, you tell them, this is an app that I built. I use it, and a few of my family members use it. It doesn't have to be an app that goes crazy. It doesn't have to be something that you put in a bunch of time into. It's the same to-do app that has the same CRUD functionality, create, update, and delete. For those of you guys that aren't familiar with that, but you're actually using it. So it's nothing that unique, but if I'm talking to you, it means you're showing me that you're building and you're thinking for yourself and actually building something that you're using. So I think that's really cool. And that can take a simple application and make you stand out in that process. So that's where I'm always trying to get people to use simple logic like that and actually use it. Like if somebody came to you and said, here's an application that I built, and you might see it and say, that's easy to build. But if they're actually using it and their family members use it, that's cool. Like that's going to stand out than over somebody that just followed a tutorial.
I agree, because practical applications, like I was telling Dennis, that at my college, there's a psychology department and they need an inventory system. And it's like, oh, okay, that's super simple to build. But like, the college, it's the level at which it's being used. A college department is now about to use this inventory system
that sounds so much better, even though it's probably a simple table that stores like, you just add items to it and search them. That's it. Like
a basic e-commerce site, like a literally, I could go on YouTube, follow a tutorial for e-commerce site, and just add in the pieces that make it an inventory system. And now when I go in an interview, if I was to be interviewing for another job or my first job, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm building an application for a college department that's going to use this from future. And then not only that, but like as someone that eventually wants to own their own business, the person that I'm working with, she was telling other colleges about this inventory system. So it added a little bit of pressure, but at the same time, if I can, if it's just me setting up another server with that college's inventory information, then that's nothing off my back. And I've done a project for 3 different colleges as a junior developer. And it's now like that's going to stand out on a resume or any interview you've ever done. So
probably the same application that you can find in a tutorial, or almost the same, but you've set yourself apart. Yeah. So right. I like this question. And this is why I asked you earlier about the remote positions. And if you have insight here, you can jump in here, but I'll just start. This one's kind of hard because I haven't experienced that. Like I don't live in Africa, and I'm not looking for a remote position. But one thing that I can say is that if you're in that position, you're probably going to have less opportunity in your area. So that means that you're going to have to do something different to stand out. The first thing that comes to mind for this right here is building up a social platform of some sort. When I'm saying not a social platform as in building like a Twitter clone, I'm saying building up your profile. So like getting active on Twitter, building up your projects, but doing something to where you can write articles that get found in SEO searches or in Google searches. So maybe optimizing your articles, trying to actually interact and write guest posts for certain people. But if you build up a name getting active on places like Code Mentor, like you're just going to have to stand out in those areas and try to build up your presence, where someone like yourself probably didn't have to do that. Wait for that truck to go by. That's pretty loud. I don't know if you can hear that.
Just a little bit's good.
So someone like yourself you can just find a job in your local area, go in an interview, and that's fine. But if you're remote, you're going to have to do something that stands out. Like that's, you're in a position that's different. You have a disadvantage, that's for sure, but it doesn't mean that you can't do something to change that. So that's probably the best advice I can give, is try to start working on marketing yourself publicly, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess I can't give you too many tips on that one, because he's in a better position himself to know what not to do. Well, I don't know. I might have said that wrong. But what I'm thinking is that so I guess this kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with practical applications. If you have some kind of projects to show that are being used by wherever you are in the world at that point, and people are able to speak for you on those projects, then that's going to definitely help you. I'm thinking you're going to need some references, and I don't know, I had to say the biggest thing is that you're going to need to go to like bigger companies along the lines of, I think, like Google or Twitter or stuff like that, because smaller, more local companies tend to I guess not extend to remote internships, just because they can have someone in the office that they can communicate with easier. So you're going to really have to have people speak for the projects you work on and for the tasks that you work on.
Yeah. And this is where somebody in that position might benefit more from even doing an unpaid internship, because it's scarier to hire somebody that's far away. Like there's that distance. By putting yourself out on the line, like you are going to have to do a little bit more. But that actually, like, the first thing that comes to mind is that, like, if I was working on a project, like I still am going to be doing something, or building my own projects outside of just tutorials. Like if somebody offered their services and said, hey, I wouldn't mind allocating 20 hours or 10 hours a week just to help you out with something, I'm much more likely to hire them in that case. If I can test out that remote situation, I'm going to be less hesitant to work with them. So advice for beginner coders, I'm trying to teach myself. What would you say? What's something that
advice for beginner coders? Oh, that's a tough one. And you would think I would know, because I taught a concepts class, or at least a teaching assistant for it. But I want to say, just don't give up. That's the biggest thing, honestly. There's plenty of websites out there, Khan Academy, Udemy if you want to go for tutorial. I mean, Dennis, if you want to learn Django. YouTube is the biggest thing I learned over that Christmas break, when I was trying to figure out like what I didn't know. I just started going down the rabbit hole. And I know they say don't do that, but like if there's a lot that you don't know, just keep climbing until you get to a point where you just get super confused. Then work your way back up from there, and then start a new hole, and eventually the holes will begin to connect, and it all makes sense. And beginners, just don't become overwhelmed. Keep a good mental about it, because it can get pretty difficult at times, but like you just have to know what your end goal in it is. Like if it's, like you said, it's a hobby for you, so don't allow it to stress you out. Let it stay in the role of a hobby, because I mean, it's fun. So let it be fun.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I would say my biggest one, and it's probably the reason why I'm even doing this video of unpaid internships, is careful with online trends. And I really don't like videos that say stuff like, is PHP dead? Is SEO dead? Like, how many times I've had people email me asking me, hey, I saw this video. Tech lead one time made a video about React and how React is not good. And it was more of like a trolling video. He knows what React is capable of. But a lot of beginners, they might not even watch the entire video and get the context. And they spend 3 weeks, a month or two learning React, and then think, oh my gosh, now it's, I can't even use it. Right. And, or it's not going to be good. And they jump into this, like they get just, the energy level just drops. And then they'll go pick up something else, and then they hear about how bad PHP is, which I just hate that conversation, because PHP is great. If you want to use it. But there's, just people always jumping into that. And I would say the solution is this. When An example I guess I can bring up is React. Like a lot of people don't know if they should use Django and React together. My answer to this is if you don't know, don't use it. Like if you don't know when you would use Django with React, then don't use it. Take your time, try to learn it on the side. But once you can find the benefits to something or why something doesn't work, then you can make that switch. So if somebody says React is dead, Dino is going to take over now, just continue using React until Dino takes over and just until you find your own answer to why that's not occurring. Or, until you can, I guess I worded that funny. Until you can find a reason why not to use React anymore. So just ignore those and continue doing it. Like when I first started, I actually started with Visual Basic. A lot of people don't even know what that is.
Wow.
So Visual Basic, my rule to that was, okay, I have no idea which language I should learn. I remember doing a little bit of PHP, just like working with WordPress websites. But when it came to learn a language, I didn't know, where on the scale, Python, PHP, Visual Basic, where all of those really, where they ranked. I could have done a Google search for that. I don't know why I didn't, but I just started with Visual Basic. And I think I worked with Visual Basic for almost a month until I made that switch. And my decision was I was working with it and then I tried Python for a little bit and Python was just so much easier. So I made that switch because Python was easier. I didn't let somebody tell me why not to use Visual Basic. I just found out for myself. So it was that experience and that debugging process. So yeah, I would say try to stay away from these headlines because a lot of people are doing things for views, and I get it. I'm not bashing anyone here, but like something like jQuery, like we can bash it all we want and say that it's losing its trend.
Right.
There's so many companies still using jQuery, so much software out there, so many websites still use it. We don't set the trend as YouTubers. The market does. The job market does. Whoever is using it is going to set that trend. Just because it's not sexy to teach anymore doesn't mean that it's irrelevant. So
that's facts. Yeah, there's so many websites that are still like .asp and or .php, and I'm just like, oh wow, like PHP. I've used that in both of the developer internships that I've had. So like the fact that if I would have listened to someone that was like, oh, don't learn PHP, go learn Node.js. Like, yeah, Node.js is more popular. Or I don't even know. I mean, right now it's just more popular.
On YouTube, I think it's more popular.
Right. Yeah. But in the industry, I don't want to give out incorrect facts. I'm just gonna say from an article that I read, it's like PHP is still used in a very high percentage of companies because that's what they started on. That's what the whole .net or is it .com boom when that happened was like PHP focused. So I mean, and someone that's used it in internships recently, like literally not even, it was this past summer. I had to use PHP like every single day. Like I was writing large PHP classes. So it's far from gone, I would say.
Yeah. Let's just put it this way. A company that's worth several $1 million or has several $1 million, in budget that they have to work with doesn't give a crap about what some YouTuber says about PHP.
Absolutely.
That's like the best answer. When I hear these trendy things, that's what annoys me is like, guys, we don't set the market. So we just need to stop that. Like we need to show trends, talk about that, but be upfront with it and not talk about why one is dead. I remember hearing about why SEO is dead, like back in 2011. And I remember like it affected me when I was still learning it, or like 2012 or 13, because I'm just getting started and here I am learning about SEO and it's 2021 and it's like, what do you mean SEO is dead? Like no one puts out those articles anymore because that's obviously not true. And it's just not that sexy to say that anymore. But yeah, that's, I guess, a prime example.
Visual Basics that you mentioned, like when I was deciding going between these two companies, one I was familiar with and another one was like a leap of faith. They used Visual Basic like since the company emerged. So it was like, AS400 and stuff like that, but Visual Basic was what they used to build their application. So there's no language really. If it's been used in the industry, then it's probably still used somewhere else. So for people nowadays to go and be like, oh, use Node or use, like you said, Dino, or I mean, Blazor, I'm biased against because I use it every day. But like even, using Blazor or jumping on the React or Vue train, because I know Vue is starting to really become a topic of conversation. And it's just, if you're doing projects, like from a YouTube perspective, cool, I would say, okay, go for it. But like in the real world, you got to be able to do any of them.
Yeah. Be language agnostic, like stick to what you like and do your stuff. Like people think that I'm always all for Django and think it's the best. I absolutely don't. Like, it's just what I started with.
Mm-hmm.
I started with it. I absolutely love it. It's accomplished almost everything that I've needed to do. Like, there's times where Node.js may have been better, but
Right.
like until I ran into that issue, like there was no reason to switch.
But see, and then the thing on that, I don't know how far you want to go in that topic, but like Node.js, it makes it, I don't want to say too easy, but people start downloading packages and they don't know the danger of, if somebody
Yeah.
stops updating a package, it could break your entire application, because all those packages depend on other packages that people have built. So I mean, they're definitely great languages and stuff to use, but like, you got to be aware.
Yeah.
The more modern stuff comes and the easier it comes, the dangers of them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Django's a little bit like that too. Like, there's certain things, like that's why I made a video on class-based views, even though I use them. Like,
Yeah.
I do like to try to look under the hood and see what's going on. But yeah. Well, I'll probably end the stream here. We're almost at 2 hours, an hour and 45. I want to one final statement I want to make here is what programming language that I suggest to start with. And this one's going to be funny just because we talked about being language agnostic.
Right.
As somebody that teaches a lot of Django and Python, my personal recommendation, and this isn't where I think you should start, but I would maybe suggest it if you have no other, like if you haven't made your decision yet. I always actually suggest people start with Node.js over Python if they're just going into web development. Here's my reason. If you're, or I guess as their first programming language, I would say JavaScript, and that's where Node.js comes in. When you're learning Python, the reason why Python was a little bit better for me was because I like the data science aspect of things.
Okay.
So if you're a web developer, you're going to need to learn JavaScript at some point. Like, I really can't imagine any scenario where you're not going to need JavaScript at some level. It's used in pretty much all of web development. So if you want to learn JavaScript, and obviously add your HTML and CSS to go with that, and then when it comes time to learn a backend language, you're going to need JavaScript anyways. But if you're starting with Python and then you're going into JavaScript, you're usually having to pick up another language. So that's where I just wanted to throw that curveball in there. It's not a hard statement. Like, start with Python, start with C++. I see somebody saying this, JS plus Python. Those are all great, but I just figured I would just tick some people off because that's always fun to do.
See, because I'm biased absolutely against it.
Yeah.
Not against it, but I mean, as a teaching assistant, at least in school when I was learning, it was Python. So, and when we taught it was Python. So like,
yeah, I always say that just because the second I introduce JavaScript in my tutorials, it's like pulling teeth. Yeah. Like, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you're using JavaScript." I'm like, "Well, you're gonna have to learn it anyways." And I would just always...
no, you're absolutely right.
And then
if going specifically for web dev, I agree.
Yeah, and at that point, that's where I'm like, just learn JavaScript, and then when it comes to Node.js, you're not gonna have to relearn all this stuff. That's like true. You'll just, yeah. So I think that's about it for this video. If you have anything you want to close with, Joseph, make sure to check out Joseph's channel. You're mostly teaching. You're doing more of like a vlog style, right? But you are talking about Blazor and so on. So if you want to just talk about that for a second, just let people know where to find you. He is in the video description. I tagged him there, so you can click on that, find his channel.
Well, I mean, first, definitely want to thank Dennis for having me on the channel. It's been a pleasure, man, talking to you. Yeah, just go. Be sure to check out my channel. I don't know. I was inspired by like back before I saw you and everything, Devin Crawford, when he was doing like the way he built. Yeah, I don't know what it was about the way he, like, I don't know.
The aesthetics in his video are just amazing. Like, I used to watch it while driving. Like, I would just turn it on and just listen to him talk, and half the time wouldn't even pay attention to what he's saying. But the way he films it, yeah,
he just like. And
I hope he comes back.
Dude, I've been trying to find him and everything. It's amazing. But yeah, I want to focus mine on stuff like that. Like, I like to create things. So if you do want to know, build projects, then that would be the place to go to. Or, I'm thinking about making a Blazor tutorial, because it's since it's actually becoming a very serious topic, and I do feel like I have a pretty good amount of knowledge on it, and I have some really good resources with the people I work with every day. So yeah, but I mean, most of all, shout out to Dennis for this, and yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for being on here. We'll say goodbye to everyone else. Appreciate you guys watching.